God damn it. Go live. What are you doing? There you go. Hello, sorry, to the YouTube side. I'm Jacob Davidson. I'm a legal layman, and this is in North Texas, and this is a show where I try to learn the law and educate while I learn the law. Sorry, I had no idea that the YouTube side wasn't working. I keep forgetting to hit go live on my uh, OBS interface. Because whenever I set up the schedule or schedule it ahead of time, it makes it so I have to hit go live, I suppose. I don't know why, but it makes me do that. So, welcome to the show. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy it. And I will be continuing the Federalist Papers from where I left off last time. And I left off on Federalist number 6. Oh yeah, and I should be confirming this with Mindset soon, but I'll be asking him questions on Friday morning, which will be the only stream. I'll be streaming Friday for this week, but very early in the morning, like 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard. So in about like 52-ish hours, maybe, somewhere around that time frame. Uh, where did I put my phone at? Hold on. My phone is missing. I'll find it later. All right. It is time to get the show going. Also, before I do that, the tea today that I'm drinking is going to be. Oh, wait. Center the camera. There we go. So the tea that I'm drinking today is a jasmine lemon pepper, I believe. Yeah, jasmine lemon pepper. I let it cool down for a little bit. I can certainly taste the jasmine already. The fact that I know what jasmine tastes like now. Federalist number 6, concerning dangers from dissension between the states. For the Independent Journal, Wednesday, November 14th, 1787, Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, the 3 last numbers of this paper have been the dedication to the enumeration of the dangers of which we should be exposed in the state of disunion from the arms and arts of foreign nations. I shall now proceed to delineate dangers from a different and perhaps still more alarming kind, those which will in all probability flow from dissension between the states themselves and from domestic factions and convulsions. These have been already, in some instances, slightly anticipated, but they deserve a more particular and more full investigation. A man must be far gone in a utopian speculation who can seriously doubt... Did I already read this? It sounds really familiar. I think I started reading this. In utopian speculation, who can seriously doubt that if these states should either be wholly disunited or united only in partial confederacies, the subdivisions into which they might be thrown would have frequent and violent contests with each other. To presume a want of motives for such contests as an argument against their existence would be to forget that men are ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious. To look for a continuation of harmony between a number of independent, unconnected sovereignties in the same neighborhood would be to disregard the uniform course of human events and to set at defiance the accumulated experience of ages. The causes of hostility among nations are innumerable. There are some which have a general and almost constant operation upon the collective bodies of society. Of this description are the love of power or the desire of preeminence and dominion, the jealousy of power or the desire of equality and safety. There are others which have a more circumscribed, though an equally operative influence within their spheres. Such are the rivalships and competitions of commerce between commercial nations. And there are others, not less numerous than either of the former, which take their original entirely in private passion, in the attachment, enmities, interests, hopes, and fears of leading individuals and communities of which they are members. Men of this class, whether the favorites of a king or of a people, have in too many instances abused the confidence they possessed and assumed in the pretext of some public motive, have not scrupled to sacrifice the national tranquility to personal advantage or personal gratification. The celebrities perished in compliance with the resentment of the prostitute, one, at the expense of much of the blood and treasure of his countrymen, attacked, vanquished, and destroyed the city of the Samians. The same man, stimulated by private pique against the Megrensians, another nation of Greece, or to avoid a prosecution, or two, another nation of Greece, or to avoid a prosecution with which he was threatened as an accomplice of a suspect theft, of a supposed theft of the statutory Phidias. 3. Or to get rid of the accusations prepared to be brought against him for dissipating the funds of the state and the purchase of popularity. 4. Or from a combination of all these causes was the primitive author of the famous and fatal war, distinguished in the Grecian annals by the name of the Peloponnesians, in the name of by the name of the Peloponnesians War, which after various vicissitudes, intermissions, and renewals terminated in the ruin of the Athenian Commonwealth. The ambitious cardinal, who was the prime minister of Henry VIII, permitting his vanity to aspire to the Triple Crown, entertained hopes of succeeding in the acquisition of the splendid prize by the influence of the Emperor Charles V. To secure the favor and interest of this enterprising and powerful monarch, he precipitated England into a war with France, contrary to the plainest dictates of policy, and at the hazard of the safety and independence, as well as the kingdom over which he presided by his counsels, as of Europe in general. For if there ever was a sovereign who bid fair to realize the project of universal monarchy, it was the Emperor Charles V, of whose intrigues Wolsey was at once the instrument and the dupe. The influence which the bigotry of one female, the petulance of another, and the cabals of a third had in the contemporary policy, ferments, and pacifications of a considerable part of Europe are topics that have been too often descanted upon, not to be known to be generally known. To multiply examples on the agency of personal consideration in the production of great national events, either foreign or domestic, according to their directions, would be an unnecessary waste of time. Those who have but a superficial acquaintance with the source from which they are to be drawn, will themselves recollect a variety of instances, and those who have a tolerable knowledge of human nature will not stand in need of such lights to form their opinion either of the reality or extent of that agency. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to illustrate the general principle may, with Shays, had not been a desperate debtor. Wait, hold on. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to form their opinion of the reality or to extent of that agency. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to illustrate the general principle may, with propriety, be made to a case which has lately happened among ourselves. If Shays had not been a desperate debtor, it is too much to be doubted whether Massachusetts would have been plunged into a civil war. But notwithstanding the concurring testimony of experience in this particulars, there are still to be found visionaries of designing men who stand ready to advocate the paradox of perpetual peace between the states. Though dismembered and alienated from each other, the genius of republics, say they, is pacific. The spirit of commerce has tendency to soften the manners of men, and to extinguish those inflammable humors which have so often kindled into wars. Commercial republics like ours will never be disposed to waste themselves in ruinous contentions with each other. They will be governed by mutual interests and will cultivate a spirit of mutual amity and concord. It is not, we may ask these projectors in politics, the true interest of all nations. Is it not? So it's a question. Is it not, we may ask these projectors in politics, the true interest of all nations to cultivate the same benevolent and philosophical spirit? If this be in their true interest, have they in fact pursued it? Has it not, on the contrary, invariably been found that momentary passions and immediate interests have a more active and imperious control over human conduct than general or remote considerations of policy, utility, or justice? Have republics a Have republics in practice been less addicted to war than monarchies? Are not the former administrated by men as well as the latter? Are there not aversions, predilections, and rivalships and desires of unjust acquisitions that affect nations as well as kings? Are not popular assemblies frequently subject to the impulses of rage, resentment, jealousy, avarice, and other irregular and violent propensities? Is it not well known that our determinations are often governed by a few individuals in whom they place confidence, and are of course liable to be tinctured by the passions of views of those individuals? Has commerce hitherto done anything more than change the objects of war? Is it not love of the wealth? Is it not the love of wealth as domineering and enterprising as a passion as that of power or glory? Have there not been as many wars founded upon commercial motives since that has become the prevailing system of nations, as were before occasioned by the cupidity of territory or dominion? My flow this time is all whacked out. Has not a spirit of commerce in many instances administered new incentives to the appetite both for one and for the other? Let experience is the least fallible guide of human opinions. Be appealed to for an answer to these inquiries. Only 20 minutes in and I'm in a bad state. Fuck. Sparta, Athens, Rome, and Carthage were all republics. Two of them, Athens and Carthage, of the commercial kind, yet were they as often engaged in wars, offensive and defensive, as the neighboring monarchies of the same type. Sparta was a little better than a well-regulated camp, and Rome was never stated of carnage and conquest. I need to make a note. That's important to note. Federalist Papers, page 22. Sparta was a little better than a well-regulated. Also, I need to go and change the tags on this video. Oh. Oh. All right, there we go. Huh, not bad. And I still remember where I am because, you know, that part caught me. Carthage, though a commercial republic. Hold up. Hold up, something happened. Look who's back. Back again. Smoke a cig. Grill a chicken. Unfortunately for that, I do not smoke. Yikes. I smoke, but only when I run. I'm not fast. Now you good. Ready to see me fucking die while reading a book? It's great. It's like I haven't performed in a choir in ages. Oh hey, catch this! Sparta was little better than a well-regulated camp, and Rome was never stated of carnage and conquest. What does a well-regulated camp stand for here? Carthage, though a commercial republic, was the aggressor in the very war that ended in her destruction. One in which the fires aren't burning everything down. It almost sounds like a functional camp. Hannibal had carried her arms into the war, or into the heart of Italy, and to the gate of Rome for Scipio. In turn, gave him an overthrow in the territories of Carthage and made a conquest of the Commonwealth. Venice in later times figured more than once in wars of ambition, till becoming an object to the other Italian states. Pope Julius II found means to accomplish that formidable league, which gave a deadly blow to the power and pride of this haughty republic. The provinces of Holland, till they were overwhelmed in debt and taxes, took a leading and conspicuous part in the wars of Europe. They had a furious contest with England for the dominion of the sea, and were among the most persevering and most implacable or implacable of the opponents of Louis XIV. In the government of Britain, representatives of people compose one branch of the national legislature. Commerce has been for ages the predominant pursuit of that country. Few nations, nevertheless, have been more frequently engaged in war, and the wars in which that kingdom has been engaged have in numerous instances proceeded from the people. I'm going to make a decision here. Tell you what, here's what I'll do. I will sit my ass down. Oh. I will say, as much as I wished I could keep that idea going as long as I could, It is too much. I will admit. I cannot keep standing up and reading like that as much as I wished I could. Whew. All right, sound check. Oh. But what I will do is read it proper still. So you guys won't still see the book. I should pull up a document that shows it and scroll while I read. So you guys can see it. That's what I'll do. I'm gonna shut up and shower, but I'm gonna keep listening to you, Layman. No Romo. Yeah, no Romo, Tony. Oh. Art is always free and cultural creation is always respected and guaranteed. uh oh, NC native, hear this. The greatest personal injury case I have ever heard. Chris Goodnow, an estimated Valley attorney, has picked up a client who is suing a sex toy company. Said client purchased a butt plug that was advertised as 100% silicone. Client wears butt plug to an MRI appointment. Much to the client's dismay, butt plug in fact has a metallic core. Butt plug is accelerated at the speed of sound up into client's chest cavity, described in memo as an anal railgun. Client survived with major injuries. Yeesh. He probably enjoyed it for like the 5 minutes up until it started bursting through his internal organs. Federalist numbers 1 through 10. So I'm gonna be shutting up for a little few minutes. I know. I was just saying if you could hear, that's what's that would happen. And I am right here, I believe. That's probably pretty funky. Yeah, because of course, why not? In the government of Britain, the representatives of the people compose one branch of the national legislature. Commerce has been for ages the predominant pursuit of the country. Few nations, nevertheless, have been more frequently engaged in war, and the wars in which the kingdom has been engaged have been numerous in numerous instances preceded by the people. There have been, if I may so express it, almost as many popular as royal wars, almost as many popular as royal wars, the cries of the nation and the importunities of their representatives have, upon various occasions, dragged their monarchs into war or continued them in it, contrary to their inclinations and sometimes contrary to the real interests of the state. And the memorable struggles for superiority between the rival houses of Austria and Bourbon, which so long kept Europe in flame, it is well known that the antipathies of the English against the French, seconding the ambitions of rather the avarice of a favorite leader, protracted the war beyond the limits marked out by the sound policy and for a considerable time in opposition to the views of the court. The wars of these two last mentioned nations have in the great measure grown out of commercial consideration, the desire of supplanting and the fears of being supplanted, either in particular branches of traffic or in the general advantages of trade and navigation, and sometimes even the more culpable desires of sharing in the commerce of other nations without their consent. The last war, but between Britain and Spain, sprang from the attempts of the British merchants to prosecute an illicit trade with the Spanish Main. These unjustifiable practices on their part produced severity on the part of the Spaniards towards the subject of Great Britain, which were not more justifiable because they exceeded the bounds of just retaliation and were chargeable with inhumanity and cruelty. Many of the English who were taken on the Spanish coast were sent to dig the mines of Potosi, and by confounded and by the usual progress of spirit of resentment, the innocent were after a while confounded with the guilty in indiscriminate punishment. The complaints of the merchants kindled a violent flame throughout the nation, which soon after broke out in the House of the Commons and was communicated from the body to the ministry. Letters of reprisals were granted and war ensued, which in its consequence overthrew all the alliances that all but 20 years before had been formed with sanguine expectations of the most beneficial fruits. From the summary of what has taken place in the other countries whose situations have borne the nearest resemblance to our own, what reason can we have to confide in these reveries, which would seduce us into the expectation of peace and cordiality between the members that present confederacy in the state of separation? Have we not already seen enough of the fallacy and extravagance of those idle theories which have amused us with promises of an exemption from the imperfections, weaknesses, and evils incidents to society in every shape? Is it not time to awake from the deceitful? Is it not time to awake from the deceitful dream of a golden age, and to adopt the practical maxim for the direction of our political conduct, that we, as well as other inhabitants of the globe, are yet remote from the happy empires of perfect wisdom and perfect virtue? Let the point of extreme depression to which our national dignity and credit have sunk, let the inconveniences felt everywhere from the lax and ill administration of the government, let the revolt of a part of the state of North Carolina and the late menacing disturbances in Pennsylvania, and the actual insurrections and rebellions in Massachusetts declare. So far as the general sense of mankind from corresponding with the tenets of those who endeavor to lull asleep our apprehensions of discord and hostility between the states, in the event of disunion that it has from long observation of the progress of society become a sort of axiom in politics. The vicinity or nearness of situations constitutes nations' natural enemies. An intelligent writer expresses himself on the subject to this effect. Neighboring nations, says he, are natural enemies of each other unless their common weaknesses force them to league in a confederate republic, and their constitution prevents the differences that neighborhood occasions, extinguishing the secret jealousies which dispose all states to aggrandize themselves at the expense of their neighbors. This passage at the same time points out the evil and suggests the remedy. Publius. I guess it also has footnotes. Aspasia Vitae, Plutarch's Life of Paracelsus, Ibid. Hold on, I'm gonna look up what these things are. Oh wait, I forgot to do this as well. There you go. Sorry, I forgot to show the Federalist Papers that I was reading. Ooh. I can't wait to get shouted at by a Southern anarchist. In the same source, used to save space and contextual reference. 6, 7, and 8. Ooh. Ah. I might just start reading from this list here. I guess it was nice to have the book. I guess I should get a refund on it. It'll save myself plenty of troubles and help you guys read along with it. The same subject concerning dangers from dissension between the states. Independent Journal. For the Independent Journal, author Alexander Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, it is sometimes asked with an air of seeming triumph that what inducements could the states have if disunited to make war upon each other? It would be full answers to this question to say precisely the same inducement which have at different times deluged in blood all the nations of the world. Like that. Okay. But unfortunately for us, the questions admit of a more particular answer. There are causes of differences within our immediate contemplation of the tendencies of which, even under the restraints of a federal constitution, we have had a sufficient experience to enable us to form a judgment of what might be expected if those restraints were removed. Can I get this in PDF form so I can actually do proper highlighting? Oh. So there are causes of differences with our immediate contemplation of the tendencies of which under the restraint of even under the restraints of a federal constitution, we have had sufficient experience to enable us to form a judgment of what might be expected if those restraints were removed. Territorial disputes have at all times been found one of the most fertile sources of hostility among nations. Perhaps the greatest proportions of wars that have desolated the earth have sprung from this origin. This cause would exist amongst us in full force. We have a vast tract of unsettled territories within the boundaries of the United States. There still are discordant and undecided claims between the several of them, and the dissolution of the Union would lay a foundation for similar claims between them all. It is well known that they have heretofore had a serious and animated discussion concerning the rights to the land which were ungranted at the time of the Revolution, and which usually went under the name of Crown lands. The states within the limits of whose colonial governments they were comprised have claimed them as their property, and two others have contended that the right of the Crown in this article developed upon the Union, especially as to all the part of the Western Territory, which either by actual possession or through the submission of the Indian proprietors. Oh, what the fuck? Big bug flew around here somewhere. Or through the submission of the Indian proprietors was subject to the jurisdiction of the King of Great Britain till it was relinquished in the Treaty of Peace. It has been said, was at all events an acquisition to the Confederacy by the compact with foreign power. It has been the prudent policy of the Congress to appease this controversy by prevailing upon these states to make secessions to the United States for the benefit of the whole. This has been so far accomplished as under the Constitution of the Union to afford a decided prospect of an amicable termination of the dispute. A dismemberment of the Confederacy, however, would revive this dispute and would create others on the same subject. At present, a large part of the vacant Western territories is, by secession at least, if not an interior right, the common property of the Union. If that were at an end, the states would make the secession on principle. The states which made the secession on principle of federal compromise, or rather, compromise would be apt, when the motive of the grant had ceased, to reclaim the lands as a reservation or reversions. The other states would no doubt insist on a proportion by right of representation. Their argument would be that a grant once made could not be revoked, and that the justice of participating in territory acquired or secured by the joint efforts of the Confederacy remain undiminished. If contrary to probability, it should be admitted by all states that each had a right to a share of this common stock, there would still be a difficulty to be surmounted as to the proper rule of apportionment. Different principles would be set up by different states for this purpose, and as they would affect the opposite interests of the parties, they might not easily be susceptible of a passive adjustment. Huh. Oh. After I finish this, I'm going to do an ad read. In the wide field of Western territory, therefore, we perceived an ample theater for hostile pretension, without an umpire or common judge to interpose between the contending parties, to reason from the past to the future, We shall have good ground to apprehend that the sword would sometimes be appealed to as the arbiter of their differences. The circumstances of the dispute between Connecticut and Pennsylvania respecting the land at Wyoming admonish us not to be sanguine in expecting an easy accommodation of such differences. The Articles of Confederation obliged the parties to submit the matter of the decision of a federal court. The submission was made, and the court decided in favor of Pennsylvania. But Connecticut gave strong indications of dissatisfaction with that determination, nor did she appear to be entirely resigned to it, till by negotiation and management something like an equivalent was found for the loss she supposed herself to have sustained. Nothing here is said as to intend to convey the slightest censure of the conduct of the state. She no doubt sincerely believed herself to have been injured by the decision, and states like individuals acquiesce with great reluctance in determinations to their disadvantage. Those who had an opportunity of seeing the insides of the transaction which attended the progress of the controversy between this state and the District of Vermont, can vouch the opposition we experienced as well from the states not interested as from those which were interested in the claim, can attest the danger to which the peace of the Confederacy might have been exposed had this state attempted to assert its right by force. Two motives preponderated in the opposition: one, a jealousy entertained of our future power, and the other, the interests of a certain individuals of influence in the neighboring states, who had obtained grants of lands under the actual government of that district. Even the states which brought forward claims in contradiction to ours seemed more solicitous to dismember this state than to establish their own pretension. These were New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. New Jersey and Rhode Island, upon all occasions, discovered a warm zeal for the independence of Vermont and Maryland, till, alarmed by the appearance of a connection between Canada and that state, entered deeply into the same views. These being small states saw with an unfriendly eye the perspective of our growing greatness. In review these transactions, we may trace some of the causes which would likely to embroil the states with each other, if it should be their propitious destiny to be disunited. Propriety? If it should be their propitious, not giving or indicating a good chance of success. Unfavorable. If it should be their unfavorable destiny to become disunited. God damn it. The competition of commerce would be another fruitful source of contention. The state less favorably circumstanced would be desirous of escaping from the disadvantages of local situations and of sharing the advantages of their more fortunate neighbors. Each state or separate confederacy would pursue a system of commercial policy peculiar to itself. This would occasion distinctions, preferences, and exclusions, which would beget discontent. The habits of intercourse on this basis of equal privileges to which we have been accustomed to, or have been accustomed since the earliest settlement of the country, would give a keener edge to those cases of discontent when they would naturally have independent of the circumstance. We should be ready to denominate injuries those things which were in reality the justifiable acts of independent sovereignties consulting a distinct interest. The spirit of enterprise which characterizes the commercial part of America has left no occasion of displaying itself unimproved. It is not at all probable that this unbridled spirit would pay much respect to those regulations of trade by which the particular states might endeavor to secure exclusive benefits to their own citizens. The infractions of these regulations on one side, the efforts to prevent and repel them on the other, would naturally lead to outrages and these to reprisals and wars. Fuck. The big bug that flew into view was a fly. Apparently I let a fly into the room, and that's damn annoying. The opportunity which some states would have of rendering other tributaries to them by commercial regulations would be impatiently submitted by the tributary states. The relative situation of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey would afford an example of this kind. New York, from the necessities of revenue, must lay duties on her importations. A great part of these duties must be paid by the inhabitants to the other states in the capacity of consumers of what we import. New York would neither be willing nor be able to forego this advantage. Her citizens would not consent to the duty paid by them should be remitted in favor of the citizens of her neighbor, nor would it be practicable if there were not this impediment in the way. To distinguish the customers in our own market, or to distinguish the customers in our own markets. What Connecticut and New Jersey long submitted to be taxed in New York for her exclusive benefit, should we be long permitted to remain in the quiet and undisturbed enjoyment of a metropolis, from the possessions of which we derived an advantage so odious to our neighbors, and in their opinions so oppressive? Should we be able to preserve it against the incumbent weight of Connecticut on the one side and the counter-operating pressures of New Jersey on the other? These are questions that temerity alone will answer in the affirmative. Excessive confidence or boldness, audacity. Got it. Got the fly. You don't need a fly swatter, you just need a well-timed box throw. I'm so lucky that didn't crack my screen either. Welcome back. I just killed a fly. Also, NC Native, you're as clean as I am right now. I took a shower before I started the stream. Oh, fuck, dude. Alright. Well, you're about to head out. Peace out, brother. Hopefully you come and reread. And hopefully my reading while sitting down will get a lot better. It's definitely working on my lung capacity. The public debt of the Union would be a further cause of collision between the separate states or confederacies. The appointment in the first instance and the progressive extinguishment afterward would be alike productive of ill humor and animosity. I like being informed about the Federalist Papers. Hell yeah, hopefully I read them to a acceptable level of literacy and vocal competence. How would it be possible to agree upon a rule of apportionment satisfactory to all? There's scarcely any that can be proposed which is entirely free from real objections. These, as usual, would be exaggerated by the adverse interests of the parties. There are even dissimilar views among the states as to the general principle of discharging the public debt. Some of them either less impressed with the importance of a national credit, or because their citizens have little, if any, immediate interest in the question, feel an indifference, if not a repugnance, to the payment of the domestic debt at any rate. Dumber than molasses and twice as slow, about as bright as Alaska in December. But I don't like the way they spoke back then. Not as bad as Shakespeare, but still they use a word I'm not as familiar with. Don't worry, as I run into a word that seems weird, I plan on hitting it with a Google search. And I'll say it out loud for you so you can understand. These would be inclined to magnify the difficulties of a distribution. Although I will say that I understand a few words a little bit more, I might accidentally not define a word you find confusing. Catch you later. I'm going to leave your stream going. I already gave you a like. Thanks, brother. Peace out, man. Others of them, a numerous body of whose citizens are creditors to the public beyond the proportions of the state in the total amount of the national debt, would be strenuous for some equitable and effective provisions. The procrastinations of the former would excite the resentment of the latter. The settlement of a rule would, in meantime, be postponed by a real difference of opinion and affected delays. The citizens of the state's interests would clamor, foreign powers would urge for the satisfaction of their just demands, and the peace of the states would be hazarded to the double contingency of the external invasion and internal contention. This portion of the Federalist Papers actually would speak to our current situation right now. Federalist 7. Suppose the difficulties of agreeing upon a rule surmounted and apportionment made, still there's a great room to suppose that the rule agreed upon would, upon experiment, be found to bear harder upon states and harder upon others. Some states and on others. Those which were suffered by it would naturally seek for a mitigation of the burden, and others who would so naturally be disinclined to a revision. Or rather, a revision which was likely to end in an increase of their own encumbrance. Their refusal would be too plausible a pretext to the complaining states to withhold their contributions, not to be embraced with avidity. Avidity being defined as extreme eagerness or enthusiasm. not to be embraced with avidity, and the non-compliance of these states with their engagements would be a ground of a bitter discussion and altercation. Even if the rule adopted should in practice justify the equality of its principle, still delinquencies in payments on the part of the states would result from a diversity of other causes: the real deficiency of resources, the mismanagement of their finances, accidental disorders in the management of the government, and in addition to the rest, the reluctance with which men commonly part with money for purposes that have outlived the exigencies which produced them, and interference with supply of immediate wants. Delinquencies from whatever causes would be productive of complaints, recriminations, and quarrels. There's perhaps nothing more likely to disturb the tranquility of nations than their being bound to mutual contributions for any common objection that does not yield an equal and coincident benefit. For it is an observation as true as it is trite that there is nothing men differ so readily about as the payment of money. And trite would be defined as trite. A remark, opinion, or idea overused and consequently of little importance, lacking originality or freshness. Laws in violation of a private contract, as they amount to aggression on the rights of the states whose citizens are injured by them, may be considered as another probable source of hostility. We are not authorized to expect that a more liberal or more equitable spirit would preside over the legislation of the individual states hereafter, if unrestrained by any additional checks than we have heretofore seen in too many instances disgraced in their several codes. We have observed the disposition to retaliation excited in Connecticut in consequence of the enormities perpetuated by the legislature of Rhode Island, and we reasonably infer that in similar cases, under circumstances of war, not parchment, but of sword, would chastise such atrocities, breaches, and moral obligations and social justice. The probability of incompatible alliances between the different states or confederacies in different foreign nations, and the effects of this situation upon the peace of the whole, have been sufficiently unfolded in some preceding papers. From the view they have exhibited of this part of the subject, this conclusion is to be drawn that America, if not connected at all, or only the feeble tie of the simple league, offense and defense would, by the operations of such jarring alliances, be gradually entangled in a pernicious labyrinth of European politics and wars, and by the destructive contentions of the parts into which she was divided, would be likely to become prey to the artifices and machinations of powers equally the enemies of them all. Divide et impera must be the motto of every nation that either hates us or fears us. Divide et impera is defined as divide and command in Latin, and must be the motto of every nation that either fears us or hates us. In order that the whole subject of these papers may as soon as possible be laid before the public, it is proposed to publish them four times a week on Tuesday and the New York Packet, and on Thursday the Daily Advertisers. And since I'm at the end of that article, or that number, I will do an ad read, which I should have done 22 minutes ago, but did not because, you know, I was running out. I needed to get it done before anything happened. If you're looking for fantastic tea, like the tea that I've been drinking, please go to Dragon's Treasure and get some tea, which is a haven for anime and tea lovers. If you're not sure what kind of tea that you'll like, please go ahead and give it a shot and get one of the sample packs. Any of the sample packs will include five bags or sample packs of a tea of green, white, herbal, oolong, and green, white, black tea. There we go. As you can see, I've been drinking this jasmine lemon pepper. I have it pulled up because I needed to figure out how many times I could rebrew it. And I filled up this thing, or this kettle, up to about the 32 mark, because that's the amount of times it would rebrew for this tea. And I have to say, sometimes the smooth and flowery notes of a tea just needs a bit of a kick. Try out this unique blend that tries to spice things up just a little bit. I have been drinking it, and it's got jasmine green tea, lemon myrtle, lemon peel, lemongrass, pink peppercorn, and pepper and natural flavors. It tastes so damn good. Like, you taste it, and it doesn't taste like much. Then it hits the back of your throat or the back of your tongue, and all kinds of flavors come out of it. I've been starting to get used to identifying the flavors in tea because of my drinking of this, and I've not regretted it. So with all that said, use code LAYMAN at checkout with the Dragon's Treasure for 10% off of all your purchases from the Dragon's Treasure. It's in the very bottom left-hand side of the screen. And like I said, Dragon's Treasure with code LAYMAN for 10% off. And you can enjoy this fantastic tea that I've been enjoying myself at a discounted rate. And it's well worth the price. I have to say I'm disappointed in my progress with the Federalist Papers. I figured I'd be reading through it a lot quicker, but apparently I am not. Of course, these men made these papers in a few months of time, I believe. Let me see. To the people. So the general introductions of the Federalist Papers into the Independent Journal started on October 27th, 1787. And the last one ended on May 28th of 1788. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 7 months it took to write and compose and write, and then distribute all 85 Federalist Papers. Ugh. Ugh. No fucking way. Okay. Sorry, I was distracting myself for a moment just to get a little refresher. Hold up, what the fuck? If anybody's watching this live right now, have you heard of Tribble? Oh, come on, damn it. This is why I should read from a book. Everything lags. .3% of the CPU is being used. Uh, huh. So Tribble, from what I'm seeing, I'm just gonna go ahead and post here. Oh no. The far left extremists, echo chamber, banned a right-leaning voice for a reason. Whatever will he do without a hostile and bigoted audience? There we go. I totally will not get Tribble's a complete failure, no one uses. And this is supposed to be my Federalist paper reading, of course. Yes, we see you, oscillating fan in the back. Fuck, did I... Sorry, my noise gate and noise suppression seem to have failed. CPT Hydro. Oh no, I'm gonna turn on the monitors. But also I'm gonna pull up the Federalist Papers again. Testing. What is... Ooh. What is... What is it catch? In the background. Huh. Maybe the sound quality is not as good as I thought it'd be. Alright. Hopefully that fixed a lot of it. I'll put that back in whenever... After a little bit. I'll also try to listen to myself after the stream's over. The consequences of the hostilities between the states from the New York Packet, Federalist number 8. Tuesday, November 20th, 1787, author Alexander Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, assuming it is therefore as an established truth that the several states in the case of disunion, or such combinations of them as might happen to be formed out of the wreck of the General Confederacy, would be subject to those vicissitudes of peace and war, of friendship and enmity with each other, which have fallen to the lot of all the neighboring nations, not united under one government. Let us enter into a concise detail of some of the consequences that would attend such a situation. War between the states in the first period of their separate existence would be accompanied by a much greater distress than it commonly is in those countries where regular military establishments have long obtained. The disciplined armies well kept on foot on the continent of Europe, though they bear a malignant aspect to liberty and economy, have notwithstanding been productive of the signal advantage of rendering sudden consequent conquests impracticable and of preventing that rapid desolation which used to mark the progress of war prior to their introduction. The art of fortification has contributed to the same ends. The nation of Europe are encircled in the chains of fortified places, which mutually obstruct invasion. Campaigns are wasted in reducing 2 or 3 frontier garrisons to gain admittance into the enemy's country. Similar impediments occur at every step to exhaust the strength and delay the progress of an invader. Formerly, an invading army would penetrate into the heart of a neighboring country almost as soon as intelligence of its approach could be received. But now a comparatively small force of disciplined troops acting on the defensive with the aid of posts is able to impede and finally to frustrate the enterprises of one much more considerable. The history of war in that quarter of the globe is no longer a history of nations subdued and empires overturned, but of towns taken and retaken, of battles that decide nothing, of retreat more beneficial than victories of effort and little acquisition. I need to hear myself real quick, so I'll just... Good God. I guess I'll be playing with the mic for a little bit. Which is worse, the oscillating fan or the aggressive noise gate sound canceling? So I'm gonna stop the monitor and just listen to myself in the video. Am I trying to read too well? It's a little frustrating that I can't get the sound gate working properly. In this country, the scene would be altogether reversed. The jealousy of military establishments would postpone them as long as possible. The want of fortifications leaving the frontiers of one state open to another would facilitate inroads. The populous states would, with little difficulty, overrun their less populous neighbors. Conquest would be as easy as to be made as difficult to be retained. War, therefore, would be desultory and predatory. Plunder and devastation ever march in the train of irregulars. The calamities of individuals would make the principal figure in the events which would characterize our military exploits. And desultory, probably dissolution. Lacking of plan, purpose, or enthusiasm. This picture is not too highly wrought, though I confess it would not long remain as a just one. Safety from external dangers is the most powerful dictator of national conduct. Even the ardent love of liberty will after a time give way to its dictates. The violent destruction of life and property incident to war, the continual effort to alarm attendant on a state of continual danger, will compel nations the most attached to liberty to resort to for repose and security to institutions which have a tendency to destroy their civil and political rights. To be more safe, they at length become willing to run the risk of being less free. The institutions chiefly alluded to are standing armies, and the corresponding appendages of military establishments. Standing armies, standing armies, it is said, are not provided against in the Constitution, and it is therefore inferred that they may exist under it. Their existence, however, from the very terms of the proposition, is at most problematic and uncertain. But standing armies, it may be replied, must inevitably result from a dissolution of the Confederacy. Frequent war and constant apprehensions which required a state of as constant preparations will infallibly produce them. The weaker states or confederacies would first have recourse to them to put themselves upon an equality with their more potent neighbors. They would endeavor to supply the inferiority of the population and resources by a more regular and effective system of defense. By disciplined troops and by fortification, they would at the same time be necessitated to strengthen the executive arm of government. In doing so, their constitutions would acquire a progressive direction towards monarchy. It is of the nature of war to increase the executive at the expense of the legislative authority. I should find this very quickly. Institutions are alluding to. Page 31. Paragraph 2. Sacrifice liberties for safety. The expedients which have been motioned would soon give the states or confederacies that made use of the superiority over their neighbors. Small states or states of less natural strength, under vigorous government and the assistance of disciplined armies, have often triumphed over larger states or states of greater natural strength, which have been destitute of these advantages. Which have been destitute of these advantages. Hey, Southern anarchist, how you fucking doing? I missed you, buddy. I have improved my reading situation. I am sitting down and relaxed rather than dying by standing up and reading upright. Even though that was my whole purpose, it was undoable. Federalists are still wrong. Ah, fair is fair. I'm still at work, unfortunately. Alright. Well, you know, work is work. It gets you paid. These are not vague inferences drawn from supposed or speculative defects in the Constitution, the whole power of which is lodged in the hands of a people, or their representatives and delegates, but they are solid conclusions drawn from the natural and necessary progress of human affairs. Alexander Hamilton got what was coming to him? Fucking hell. What about James Madison, huh? He also wrote parts of this. What about John Jay? Hamilton got shot because he spoke too much. He didn't get shot because his political opinions in this were disfavorable. It may perhaps be asked by what of objections to this, why did not standing armies spring up out of the contentions which so distracted the ancient republics of Greece? All faggots who wanted George Washington to become a monarch. Well, I mean, that was basically everyone. Like, we've gotten so saved by these people that we'd be willing to subject ourselves under them at the time. Oh, I don't know what I could do to improve my whole streaming setup. Picture-in-picture for the YouTube side. Jefferson wasn't a fan. And this is why the Jeffersonian form of government is still far better than any other. Different answers equally satisfactory may be given to this question. The industrious habits of the people of the present day, absorbed in the pursuits of gain and devoted to the improvements of agriculture and commerce, are incompatible with the conditions of the nation of soldiers, which was the true condition of the people of those republics. The means of revenue, which have been so greatly multiplied by the increase of gold and silver and the arts of industry, and the science of finance, which is the offspring of modern times, concurring with the habits of nations, have produced an entire revolution in the system of war, and have rendered disciplined armies, distinct from the body of the citizens, the inseparable companions of frequent hostility. Ah, I didn't get much sleep. But you know, it's whatever. You also probably didn't get much sleep. How? Why? The fuck? There we go. Check locals. Anti-Federalists such as Thomas Jefferson feared that a concentration of central authority might lead to a loss of individuals and state rights. They resented Federalist monetary policies which they believed gave advantages to the upper class. Madison, man, he was a fence sitter. Madison was the revolutionary equivalent of Temple, I would say. Almost like was onto something there. I don't see what you're saying. Nah. What could they have been onto? No way. There's a wide difference also between military establishments and a country seldom exposed by its situation to international invasion, or rather, by international invasions, and in one in which is often subject to them and always apprehensive of them. The rulers of the former can have a good pretext if they are even so inclined to keep on foot armies so numerous as must of necessity be maintained in the latter. These armies being in the first case rarely, if at all, called into activity for internal defense or interior defense. The people are in no danger of being broken to military subordination. The laws are not accustomed to relaxation in favor of military exigencies. The civil states remain in full vigor, neither corrupted nor confounded with the principles of propensities of the other states. The smallness of the army renders the natural strength of the community an overmatch for it, and the citizens not have habituated to look up to the military power for protection or to submit to its oppression. Neither love nor fear of the soldiery, they view them in spirit of jealous acquiescence in a necessary evil, and to stand to resist a power which they suppose may exert to the prejudice of their rights. The army under such circumstances may usefully aid the magistrate to suppress a small faction or an occasional mob or insurrection, but will be unable to enforce encroachments against the united efforts of the great body of the people. Wait a fucking minute. Okay, I get that you don't like the Federalists, but Hamilton himself just here said, basically, the idea of our standing militaries, if I'm understanding this right, the idea of our standing militaries is that they are well kept and in control of small things, but we should also be able, but small enough that if the people were to rise up against them, that we would greatly outnumber them if they decided to encroach on us. I'm only trying to say this is what I'm understanding from this paragraph. Also, you're free to do that if you want. I don't really have a hypothesis. I'm just reading this to glean something. But if Hamilton himself is pushing the idea that we should be able to oppose our military at our own whim, hell yeah. It brings to mind every argument that we, with our AR-15s, will never have the strength to oppose the government. It's such a disingenuous argument that I hear all the time. Uh, Federalist Papers 32. Page 32. Paragraph 3. Standing armies are to be kept small and only used for small actions. Otherwise, the people should be greater to oppose encroachment. I'm going to probably copy and paste all of these notations I leave in the YouTube comments, because I think it's a really good idea to use its 200-word limitations to facilitate better summarization of the paragraph. Yes, that was his plan, but everyone has a plan until they get power mad. Hamilton was under illusions that all future generations would be liberty-minded like he was. Jefferson knew that if you allowed power to grow, it would become tyrannical, is kind of how you're thinking, if I'm understanding you right. Because it cuts off at if you allowed in a country, right. The wide, yeah, I read all this. In a country in the predicament that last described, the contrary of all this happens. The perpetual menacings of a danger oblige the government to be always prepared to repel it. Its armies must be numerous enough for instant defense. The continual necessities for their services enhances the importance of the soldier. Their proportionability, they're proportionable, and proportionably degrades the condition of the citizens. The military state becomes elevated above the civil. The inhabitants of territories, often the theater of war, are unavoidably subject of the frequent and infringements of their rights, which serve to weaken their sense of rights, and by degrees the people are brought to consider the soldiery not only as their protectors but as their superior. The transition from the disposition to that of a considering them masters is neither remote nor difficult, but is very difficult to prevail upon people under such impressions to make bold or effectual resistance to usurpation supported by the military power. Centralized command of the military from the executive, it would eventually become oppressive. All three-letter agencies are outgrowth of federal powers. God damn it. I agree with you on the centralized thing. Nothing proves that case more prevalently than fucking Lincoln. The Kingdom of Great Britain falls with the first description, an insular situation and a powerful marine, guarding it in a great measure against the possibility of foreign invasion, supersedes the necessity of a numerous army within the kingdom. A sufficient force to make head against a sudden descent till the militia could have time to rally and embody is all that has been deemed requisite. No motive of a national policy has demanded, nor would public opinion have tolerated, a large number of troops upon its domestic establishment. There has been, for a long time past, little room for the operation of other causes which have been enumerated as the consequences of internal war. This peculiar felicity is defined as probably situation or occurrence. Intense happiness, the ability to find an appropriate expression for one's lot. This peculiar expression of situation has, in a great degree, contributed to preserve the liberty which the country to this day enjoys, in spite of the prevalent venality. This is for NC native because he apparently needs these things to find, and so do I for this one. The condition of being susceptible to bribery or corruption. In spite of the prevalent openness for corruption or openness for bribery and corruption, if on the contrary Britain had been situated on the continent and had been compelled, as she would have been by the situation, to make her military establishments at home coexistent with those of the greater powers of Europe, she, like them, would in all probability at this day a victim to the absolute power of a single man. 'Tis possible, though not easy, that the people of that island may be enslaved from other causes, but it cannot be by the prowess of an army so inconsiderable as that which has been usually kept up within the kingdom. What's the word? I was distracted. Oh. The first word was felicity, which is defined as an expression or happiness, and venality is openness to corruption and bribery. If we are wise enough to preserve the Union, we may for ages enjoy an advantage similar to that of an insulated situation. Europe is at a great distance from us. Her colonies in our vicinity will be likely to continue too much disproportion in strength to be able to give us any dangerous annoyance. Extensive military establishments cannot, in this position, be necessary to our security, but if we should be disunited, the integral part should either remain separated or, which is most probable, should be thrown together into 2 or 3 confederacies, we should be, in short course of time, in the predicament of the continental powers of Europe. Our liberties would be a prey to the means of defending ourselves against the ambitions and jealousies of each other. This is an idea not superficial or futile, but solid and weighty. It deserves the most serious and mature consideration of every prudent and honest man of whatever party. If such men will make a firm and solemn pause and meditate dispassionately on the importance of this interesting idea, if they will contemplate it in all its attitudes and trace it to all its consequences, they will not hesitate to part with trivial objections to a constitution, the rejection of which would, in all probability, put a final period to the Union. The airy phantoms that flit before the distempered imaginations of some of its adversaries would quickly give place to more substantial forms of dangers, real, certain, and formidable. Venality. Yeah. Well, these ideas give us... Where was one at here? Fuck. The odd pupilless. This objection will be fully examined in its proper place, and it will be shown that only natural precautions which could have been taken on this subject has been taken, and a much better one than is to be found in any constitution that has been heretofore framed in America, most of which contain no guard at all on this subject. What in the hell? Where is that footnote? Could you help me find it if you have time to dedicate to it? Okay, actually I found it. Federalist number 9. Actually, before I do that, it's once again a turn of an hour. No, never mind, man. I found what I was looking for. It was a footnote notation. If you're a big fan of tea and anime, or anime and tea, then the Dragon's Treasure... Yeah, I'm a master at baiting people into doing random shit for me, dude. Don't worry. The Dragon's Treasure is a haven for anime and tea lovers, and is the best place that I have found that you can buy some tea, and I can give you something better than that, discount. Using code Layman for 10% off of all purchases at the Dragon Treasure, you can get any of the products that you see on the page for 10% off of its price, and you can enjoy a very good amount of savings. It's the most you can save on the purchase that you can get without having to buy into a subscription program to get 15% off. So it is the best offer that I can give you without any additional cost to you. What if I like neither tea nor anime? Well, that is damn tough, because you're going to buy them anyway. This is a threat. Yeah, sure, I'll bet on it. My threat. I'll bet on my threat being effective. Yeah, I'll do another one. I'm a professional streamer right now. I'm about to do something very professional. I've only ate very little throughout the day, and I'm going to eat and read at the exact same time. I'm your huckleberry. God damn it, I don't even know what that means. I know it means something, but I don't know what. God damn it, dude. To be one's huckleberry usually has the phrase, I'm your huckleberry, is to be just the right person for a given job or a willing executor of some commission. I was born in '99. I grew up on video games. I don't watch very many movies. Tell you what, I will watch it when I get big enough. We'll watch it together. You can enjoy the movie once again, and I can become cultured as... What generation am I in? What generation is 1999? '90s and 2010. Gen Z! I'm Gen Z! God damn it! No, I refuse! Make me a millennial! Is millennial better than... Are millennials better than Gen Zs? My grandpa was born somewhere between the silent generation and the baby boomers. I'm all caps mode. All right, be in all caps, brother. Like I said, I'm gonna eat on stream. Meanwhile, you have Shut Eye saying I'm a millennial. Who fucking decides these things? I'm very curious. Shit fucked for a moment. Poopy butthole. Open my stream on your computer and send me $20. You said you're my Huckleberry. Do that for me. I'm a total fucking shitter for that one. Federalist number 9. The utility of the Union as a safeguard against domestic factions and insurrections. For the Independent Journal, author Alexander Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, a firm union will be of the utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of the petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrasts to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of felicity open to view, we behold them with a mixture of regret arising from the reflection, and the pleasing scenes before us are soon to be overwhelmed by the tempestuous waves of sedition and party rage. If momentary rays of glory break forth from the gloom, while they dazzle us with the transient and fleeting brilliance, they at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of the government should pervert the directions and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for which the favored soils that produce them have been so justly celebrated. So basically, he skirts the line of utter control and no control, or absolute lack of organization as a bad thing. Knowing you probably want to lean far into this side of the spectrum, don't you? From the disorders that disfigure the annals of those republics, the advocates of despotism have drawn arguments not only against the forms of republic government, but against the very principles of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society, and have indulged themselves in malicious exultation over its friends and partisans. Happily for mankind, stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have in few glorious instances refuted their gloomy sophisms, and I trust America will be the broad and solid foundation of their edifices, not less magnificent, which will be equally permanent monuments of their errors. But it is not to be denied that the portraits they have sketched of Republican governments were two just copies of the original from which they were taken. If it had been found impracticable to have devised models of a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obligated to abandon the cause of that species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvement. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institutions of court composed of judges holding their offices during good behavior, the representation of the people in the legislature by the deputies of their own elections, and these are wholly new discoveries or have made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. They are means and powerful means by which the excellence of Republican government may be retained and its imperfections lessened or avoided. To this catalog of circumstances that tend to the amelioration of the popular systems of government. Amelioration is defined as the act of making something better or improvement that tend to the improvement of the popular systems of civil government. I shall venture, however novel it may appear to some, to add one more on the principle which has been made the foundation of an objection to the Constitution. I mean the enlargement of the orbit, within which systems are to revolve, either in respect to the dimensions of a single state or to the consolidation of several smaller states into one greater confederacy. The latter is that which immediately concern the object under consideration. It will, however, be of use to examine the principle and its application to a single state, which shall be attended to in other place. Amelioration. Amelioration. Is that not how I said it, or are you just typing that out for whoever? So he's going to bring up the one that is the objection of the new Constitution. I mean the enlargement of the orbit. Is this a distinction without? Is this a difference without distinction kind of thing? Amelioration. What else can I? You shut your fucking mouth. I should not have revealed that. Amelioration. How did I not say that? I read the word. I will not be gaslit. This time it's gaslighting. Last time you were right. But you're only right so many times. Crying is for loser pussies. I am not a loser pussy. I am a loser, but I'm not a pussy. The utility of a confederacy, as well as to suppress factions and to guard the internal tranquility of states as to increase their internal force and security is in reality not a new idea. The extra syllable. I'm never wrong, huh? X'd out. I said amelioration. No, but you're spelling it amelioration, actually. I said it like this. I love that I have the admin sign right there. NC Native, welcome back. I have defined a few words. It has been practiced upon the different countries and ages and has received the sanction of the most approved writers on the subject of politics. The opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated the observations of Montesquieu on the necessities of the contracted territory for a republican government. The strip club was closed today, lol. Assiduity. I pride myself on my literary skills. Poopy butthole. Constant or close attention to what one is doing. Attentiveness, basically. With great attention, cited and circulated the observations of Montesquieu. Oh, okay. So he talks about the Anti-Federalist Papers. You know, speaking of... Anti-Federalist. Do they not have the Anti-Federalist Papers in the Library of Congress? Who says you talk like a fag and your shit's all retarded? That he does. That he does. Oh, why would they? Uh, what we need to do is restore the right of secession, probably. God damn it. I'm gonna watch Nerdbot later. Take care, poopy butthole. There was never a right of secession. We did it a few times before, you know, the war. Alright, I will have the Federalist Papers. You sound like someone who's watched a Razorvis video in your life. The utility of the Confederacy was as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquilities, right, as to increase the external force and security is in reality not a new idea. Yeah. Montesquieu. On the necessities of the contracted territory of the Republican government. But they seem not to have been appraised of the sentiment of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with ready acquiescence. If I had my way, I would destroy the legacy of Lincoln. Knowing what I know about him, I would do it. Oh yeah, I got my log cards too. I love and hate this one at the same time because I am actually blocked. When Montesquieu recommended a small extent for republics, the standards he had in view were from dimensions far short of the limits of almost every state of these states. Short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Neither Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can be any means compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the creation of truth, we shall be driven to the alternative either of taking refuge at once in the arms of the monarchy, or of splitting ourselves into an infinite little, jealous, clashing, tumultuous commonwealths, the wretched nurseries of unceasing discord, and the miserable objects of the universal pity or contempt. Some of the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma and have been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient, might by multiplication of the petty offices answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to the extent of their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue, but it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the American people. Bronco the Bronco. Referring the examination of the principles itself to another place, as has been already mentioned, it will be sufficient to remark here that in the size of the author who has been most emphatically quoted upon the occasion, it would only dictate a reduction of the size of the more considerable members of the Union, but would not militate against their being all comprehended in one Confederate government. And this is the true question in the discussion of which we are at present interested. So far are the suggestions of Montesquieu from standing in opposition to the General Union of the States, that he explicitly treats of a Confederate Republic as expedient for extending the sphere of popular government and reconciling the advantages of monarchy with those of republicanism. It is very probable, says he, that mankind will have been obligated at length to live constantly under the government of a single person, had they not contrived a kind of constitution that has all the internal advantages of a republic, together with the external forces of monarchical government. I mean a Confederate Republic. This form of government is a convention by which several smaller states agree to become members of a larger one, which they intend to form. It is a kind of assemblage of societies that constitute a new one, capable of increasing by means of new associations till they arrive to such a degree of power as to be able to provide for security of the united body. A republic of this kind, able to withstand an external force, may support itself without any internal corruptions. The form of this society prevents all manners of inconveniences. If a single member should attempt to usurp the supreme authority, he could not suppose to have an equal authority and credit in all the Confederate States. Were he to have great influence over one, this would alarm the rest. Were he to subdue a part, that which would still remain free might oppose him with forces independent of those which had been usurped and overpower him before he could be settled in his usurpation. Should a popular insurrection happen in one of the Confederate States, the others are able to quell it. Should abuses creep into one part, they are reformed by those that remain sound. The state may be destroyed on one side and not on the other. The Confederacy may be dissolved, and the Confederates preserve their sovereignty. As its government is composed of smaller republics, it enjoys the internal happiness of each, and with respect to its external situation, it is possessed by means of the association of all advantages of large monarchies. I have thought it proper to quote at length these interesting passages because they contain a luminous abridgment of the principal arguments in favor of the Union, and must effectually remove the false impression which a misapplication of other parts of the work was calculated to make. They have at the same time an intimate connection with the more immediate designs of this paper, which is to illustrate the tendency of the Union to repress domestic faction and insurrections. A distinction more subtle than accurate has been raised between a confederacy and a consolidation of the states. The essential characteristics of the first is said to be the restriction of its authority to the members in their collective capacities, without reaching to the individuals of whom they are composed. It is contended that the National Council ought to have no concern with any object of internal administration. An exact equality of suffrage between the members has also been insisted upon as leading feature of a confederate government. These positions are in the main arbitrary. They are supported neither by principle nor precedent. It has indeed happened that governments of this kind have generally operated in the manner which the distinctions taken notice of, supposed to be inherent in their nature, but there have been in most of them extensive exceptions to practice, which serve to prove, as far as example will go, that there is no absolute rule on the subject. And it will be clearly shown in the discourse of this investigation that as far as the principle contended for has prevailed, it has been the cause or incurable disorder of an imbecility in the government. Imbecility probably is the imbecile, and that is defined by utter foolishness, or the state of being very foolish or stupid. The definition of a confederate republic seems simply to be an assemblage of societies or an association of two or more states into one state. The extent, modifications, and objects of the federal authority are mere matters of discretion, so long as separate organizations of the members be not abolished, so long as it exists, by a constitutional necessity or necessity for local purposes, though it should be imperfect subordination to the general authority of the Union. It would still be, in fact, in theory, an association of states or a confederacy. I wouldn't say that, native, but if you want to own it, own it. The proposed constitution, so far from implying an abolition of state governments, makes the constituent part of the national sovereignty by allowing them a discretion representation in the Senate and leaves in their possession certain exclusive and very important proportions of sovereign power. This fully corresponds in every rational import of the terms with the idea of federal government. In the Lycian Confederacy, which consisted of 23 cities of republics, the largest were entitled to 3 votes in the Common Council. Those of the middle class 2 those of the middle class 2 to 2, and those of the smallest class to 1. The Common Council had appointed of all the judges and magistrates the respective cities. This was certainly the most delicate species of interference in their internal administrations, for there be anything that seems exclusively appropriated to the local jurisdictions. It is the appointment of their own officers. Yet Montesquieu, speaking of this association, says, "Were I to give a model of an excellent Confederate republic, it would be that of Lycia." Thus, we perceive that the distinctions insisted upon were not within the contemplation of this enlightened civilian, and we should be led to conclude that they are the novel refinement of an erroneous theory. Spirits of Law, I guess, by Publius. Spirits of Law. It's very probable, Sissy. Okay. Hey, I need just a moment. I'll be right back. Oh, PP gang. How did you know? Oh shit. So Madison even got in the first 10. I'm a little saddened because John Jay basically disappears after the first ones. Concerning dangers from foreign force and influence. John Jay's basically gone now. He's not a part of this situation anymore. I think I'm psychedelic or something. It's possible. I want to try and like force push this stream into 3 hours, but I don't think I can read this the sub James Madison in 10 minutes. John Jacobs, Singleheimer Schmidt. Oh shit. I'm watching myself for a moment. The background. Oh shit. I'm not caught up with myself. Hot damn. Also, it's kind of skewed. Right, like that. Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. We'll save Madison's first entry for next Wednesday. And before I wrap up everything just yet, I'm on camera. Damn it. Scene. Here we go. If you're a fan of anime and tea, or anime or tea, then the Dragon's Treasure is the place for you. Use code Layman for 10% off at checkout for any of these kinds of tea. You got your mana potion, you got Sebastian's Morning Earl Grey, red chocolate cake, and I drank the Jasmine Lemon Pepper, which tasted actually so very good. The lemony zest, I can actually identify jasmine flavors now. And the peppers wasn't so bad. It's kind of like a cinnamon, but not in the same way. That's how I would describe it. It's cinnamony, but not quite. I vastly enjoyed the flavor of the jasmine lemon pepper tea, and I will continue to try out the different types of tea that I have for the next few days, or for the next few streams. I've only got like 6 left, I think. Dragon Wings. And so, hopefully, I'll get to share my opinions on those. But remember, code Layman at checkout for Dragon's Treasure. All can be found in the description. And you can get 10% off of all your purchases of tea, teaware, and merchandise. I have yet to indulge myself in the tea that I wanted to drink a lot more of, and that is the Magic Girl Venus, which is if I remember right, it's pronounced rooibos, and this is the Sebastian Morning Earl Grey. Thank you, Native. I started it off pretty rough, but that's because I did the hard-ass thing of trying to read it while standing up. Decided I didn't really need to do that, and I would just, you know, proceed to read while sitting down from the Library of Congress. It's very helpful, and hopefully it will help me out a lot. But yeah, with that said, go back to camera. Scroll fucking Twitter for a minute. Ah, fuck. So yeah, with all that said, Congress libraries. Congress libraries. That's pretty good. But yeah, if you liked what you saw, if you liked what you heard, I plan on doing this every week until I'm done with the Federalist Papers, and then I'll start on the Anti-Federalist Papers. And then I'll start I think I plan on reading the Declaration of Independence on a day before all this. Maybe next week on Tuesday, before I wrap up the show, I'll read the Declaration of Independence in full, leading into a Wednesday of the Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers, and whatnot. With that said, if you liked, hit the thumbs up, and hit subscribe on Rumble and on YouTube. It helps the growth. It helps me, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, leave a comment if you like. You can call me a Mr. Poopy Butthole if you like. I don't care. Say what you will. I am not going to hurt you for your speech. And I think I lost a follower because he thought I deleted his comment, but I didn't. Which is weird. But yeah. Oh yeah, everybody could use a periodic constitution and amendment readings. Ooh. I should do that. I should do that next Tuesday. After the declaration, make it a declaration reading and a amendment reading. So no news article for those 2 days. That's what I'll do. And then I'll occasionally read the Constitution from here on, every so often. But yeah, like on Rumble, like on YouTube, subscribe on both. Share it with everybody you know. Share it with everybody you care to share it to. Follow me on Locals, which is legallayman.locals.com, which is a place where you can support me, where I'll try to post my news more often, and you can support me there. I'm also on Twitter if you want to follow me there at Legal Layman, which is layman with 2 N's. And code layman for 10% off. Once again, thank you for watching, and I appreciate your viewing. I'll see you guys later. And to anybody who watches on the replay, I hope this wasn't too bad for you either. With that said, hang loose.